Baker Show.
There we go. We are back. And I want to welcome everyone back to part 2 of tonight's Kev Baker Show. Right here on Truth Frequency Radio, TFRlive.com, where silence is consent. Okay, so before we launch back into tonight's show, let me just remind everyone that the Kev Baker Show is brought to you in association with GetTheTea.com. Yes, that's GetTheTea.com. Now, Ronnie McMullen is the man behind the company that is changing America one tea bag at a time. And let's just head on over and hear what Ronnie has to say about GetTheTea.com.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to GetTheTea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
So remember, folks, head on over there. Check out Get the Tea at GetTheTea.com. And remember to let Ronnie and the team know that you heard it here first on KBS. Let's get back into it. And that's right, I'm still buzzing after being to see David Icke last night. If you've never been to see David Icke, I highly, highly recommend it. You know, some people, not really everyone's cup of tea, but I tell you what, man, the amount of information and knowledge that guy has is absolutely startling. It really, really is. And, you know, hopefully I've absorbed enough of his woo so that the shows for the weeks ahead are going to be absolutely off the charts. And I know we've just kind of definitely stepped things up here during the break, because not just me and Jimmy Jean's here anymore. We've also got Scotty Lopez. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up? Hey, you know, that little Patreon hangout you had going on, that was pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I'm liking the Sunday hangouts, dude. I really am. I think, you know, we had maybe at the most at one time we had about 10 in there, I think. And I think I've got 30 patrons at the most. So at the most we'll have 30 in there. But yeah, I'm enjoying the Sunday hangout. We do that over on YouTube. And for anyone who wants to be a part of that, go and join us over at patreon.com/live. But yeah, that was good because Jimmy wasn't feeling too well on Sunday and you had stepped in at just the right time. And man, oh man, time flies when you get talking on there. It really does.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, I was the wingman that just happened to fly in right when somebody was getting shot down. So
that was perfect.
It really was a synchronicity. And, you know, it's almost that quantum field again that I was talking about, boys. Telling you that's where we all come from. So we are all interconnected. And, you know, a lot of the time on the show, you've heard me referring to this place, reality, the times we live in, to as bizarro land, upside down land as well, right? There's a quote in Ike's book here, and again, he went over it last night in the show, and it brought a smile to my face because this absolutely encapsulates why I call it upside down land. And this comes from author Michael Elner. He says, just look at us. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health. Lawyers destroy justice. Universities destroy knowledge. Governments destroy freedom. The major media destroy information, and religions destroy spirituality. Now, if that isn't the best way to describe upside down world, I surely don't know what is. But just one more little quote that Ike used last night, and again, this just shows you how illusory or just how much, you know, reality is dependent on us and how much goes unseen, how much information we take in, yet use so little to produce all of this known universe around us, right? We'll get a load of this. Because it says every second, 11 million sensations crackle down these neural pathways. The brain is confronted with an alarming array of images, sounds, and smells, which is rigorously filtered down until it is left with a manageable list of around 40. Thus, 40 sensations per second make up what we perceive as reality. Now, just think about that, folks, because we're taking in here and we're processing 11 million pieces of data at any given second. So out of that, we are discarding 10,900,060 pieces of information. Just gone. Well, not gone, but into our subconscious. And it takes only 40 pieces of raw data that we're taking in through our senses to create this illusion, as I call it, this world around us right now. Now that there is a head scratcher. That is quite startling. And that shows, the power of our minds to actually generate the world around us. Yes, I said that, generate the world around us. For without us in this world, everything's just a potential. Everything's just a probability. We really need to remember just how powerful we are, how powerful that observer is in all of this quantum universe that we find ourselves in. Very, very interesting woo indeed. And just before the break, I mentioned the fact that cells, right? Atoms, they're made up of 99.9999999 recurring forever % empty space. So literally this physical world all around us is 99.999 empty space. Now that in itself, you have to really start to question, well, how come things are solid? Why do we actually decode things and the world around us appears the way it does? Well, that takes me nicely to CERN, funnily enough. I didn't know this was going to happen today, but I did know, and we've said for some time, that round about this time of year, CERN start to do their kind of crazy exotic experiments, the stuff that they only do for like a couple of weeks at a time at the end of the year. And this is a really important run that they're having right now because there's going to be a 2-year shutdown at CERN. Yes, that's right. I'm not going to have any CERNology to go over for a long, long time. But what they're doing right now is things are getting heavy, folks. They're getting really, really heavy at CERN. And I don't mean stressful or scary or fearful. I mean they're literally doing runs of heavy ions. Now, it used to be we get the proton-on-proton collisions. That's what usually occurs all year round. But now, literally, they are crashing particles of lead together. Now, I was listening to a presentation today. It was a question and answer over on Facebook with the actual people who are doing this run, this special physics run. And they were coming from the Alice detector. And they were explaining how the energies that are involved in these runs right now, we actually see far higher energies earlier on in the year during normal runs. So that's the first thing I want to throw out there tonight. If there's anyone maybe on YouTube or anyone out there saying this is really, really dangerous stuff that they're working on right now, it's actually no more dangerous than anything they've been doing throughout the year that's just passed. But what makes this different is the fact that usually they just use the protons, right? They crack open the nucleus and it's the protons, neutrons, and electrons in there. Well, what they're doing now is they're taking an actual lead nucleus, stripping an electron off it, and then they're firing them around the tubes at the speed of light and colliding them. But this is where it gets interesting because they're literally recreating the moments right after the Big Bang with these runs of physics right now. Because with these heavier ions of lead, what happens is when they collide together, they literally create temperatures that were only ever seen immediately after the Big Bang. Now, this creates something, you can look at it as primordial matter, if you like. but I prefer to look at it as like a quark gluon soup. Now, this isn't strangelets. It's not the quark gluon condensates that we talk about, the most powerful destructive force in the universe. This is a quark gluon plasma. Now, the reason they want to do these experiments and the reasons they're given is because that 99% space I was talking about in all of the atoms that are in the universe, that space, it's not strictly speaking empty space, because this is where the quarks and the gluons normally, naturally, are spinning around, held by something called the strong force. Now, there's 4 forces in physics: strong, electromagnetic, weak, and gravity. We know how I feel about gravity. So what they're doing in this run of physics is, when they're colliding them, they're removing the strong force. They're looking to that picosecond after the Big Bang, if we want to call it that, and for argument's sake tonight we will. They're wanting to look at that immediate moment of time before there was a strong force. They want to see how quarks and gluons work without that force holding them together. They're literally just trying to go further and further back in time, folks, to look at how, not only just to identify the building blocks that everything is made up of, but to see how all of this took shape, why things worked the way they did in the moments after that. So, like I say, if you do hear anyone saying this is like really, really dangerous stuff, it's no more dangerous than any of the other physics that goes on there. And when they come back 2 years from now, this is the other big takeaway that I had from today's presentation, is that there'll be 10 times the luminosity. Now, in layman's terms, that just means there's going to be 10 times the collisions, 10 times the brightness from the little explosions that are given off. And I say little explosions deliberately, because they're not literally creating a big bang that resulted in the universe we're in today. You know, we talk about the macro and the micro, and I think, again, I just want to emphasize, you know, these are very, very, very miniature little big bangs, if you want to call them that. And from what I could tell today, listening to these cats, all these physicists, and I'll bring you guys back in here right now, you know, it sounds to me as if actually for an exotic physics run, for the kind of excitement at the end of the year that we sometimes have, this was actually quite mundane, guys. They're not looking for any kind of breaking of the standard model kind of results coming back from this one. And again, I think this is just more looking at that quark gluon state, trying to get closer and closer to the immediate moments after that Big Bang. No matter if we adhere to the Big Bang or not, we have to accept that these scientists at CERN, that's the language they use. So I'll bring you in first, Jimbo. You know, I haven't had much to say about CERN this year, and that's because, you know, we said it all before, but this new run that they're doing right now, I find it quite interesting from a metaphysical woo point of view, right? Because how often do we talk about CERN being like a modern day alchemical machine? And when you talk about alchemy, one of the main things that should spring to mind is people turning lead into gold. So here they are using lead ions, and think they could use any heavy metal ion, but they chose lead. And then over at Brookhaven Labs, closer to your neck of the woods, Jimmy, albeit the other coast from where you are, but the relativistic high or heavy ion collider, the RIC, they actually use gold in that one. So here today I am listening to this presentation about what's going on at the Alice detector, and you've got these modern day scientists talking about lead and gold. It was quite surreal, Jimbo.
And you see alchemy, it seems to be a normal topic of discussion lately in relation to science and in relation to quantum computing. You hear people making speeches relating to magic. I think alchemy on a level of spirituality, as far as spiritual goes, the lead into gold is the raw human form in its most animalistic nature, and raising your vibration to the point of gold or to, basically reach this high frequency of vibration and make yourself into the next realm or whatever. So I think what's really interesting about what you're bringing up is that the more we learn, the more we know, and the world gets bigger.
Yeah, the more we learn, the more we know, but the more we know gives birth to even more questions. So that means you have to keep on going, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, because the more we find out, the more we realize the less we really do know. I know a lot of the subjects that I look into where I start to think and I'm feeling like I have a pretty good handle on something, all of a sudden something will take a turn and it will turn everything on its ear. And I think that's a lot of what's going on. Now, these guys are actually using a physical piece of equipment to achieve what we've talked about in the past that was possible before with natural type circumstances. I'm not real sure.
Well, they were actually talking today. It's funny you bring that up because they were talking about how these collisions, and I'll bring Scott in at this point, they say that these collisions naturally occur inside neutron stars, right? But obviously a bit difficult to set up a physics experiment within the confines of a neutron star. But then one of them was even talking about how these collisions even happen in our upper atmosphere. And, we have these near speed of light particles coming in from space, and they're literally colliding in the atmosphere. And I found that quite interesting, the way that was brought up. And for anyone who wants to watch that video, it's over on the CERN page on Facebook Live. And Scott, one thing that did kind of alleviate or indicate to me today that this isn't really anything that we should be getting overly fearful about. Not that we should be in fear of CERN anyway, but we often talk about the strangelets, right? And the strangelets, they're produced at 10 tera electron volts. Well, these experiments that they're doing, and they started on the 9th of November, run for a couple of weeks. Scott, they barely make it over 5 tera electron volts. So strangelets off the table, and hopefully I can alleviate some of the fear that I just know is going to be out there on YouTube, because it comes to CERN, it's one of these topics that for some reason, the scarier you make it sound, people seem to think maybe you know more about it. When in reality, there's nothing really to be scared of here that I can see.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like more kind of business as usual test runs that they're doing over there right now. And
I learned something new.
You're not gonna have like this massive groundbreaking discovery every year. They're gonna go through periods of time where it's just going to be business as usual over there, and they're not really going to be doing any sort of groundbreaking, making any groundbreaking discovery. I mean, it just don't happen that way. That's why science takes a long time to, find these things. You're not going to just find them all over the place, like every other week or something like that. So yeah, it don't surprise me in the least that, when they decide to go back online and run some tests, it's not going to be something that's overly dramatic. And
especially when they're using things that are far heavier, they've got the potential to be souped up to far more energy if they wanted to. So, I mean,
yeah,
like I was saying before, and I'll get Jimmy back here, he's got the one up, Jimmy, usually just protons from within the nucleus of an atom, right? But this time we're using the nucleus, and this was something I learned today, because they strip the electron out, and they use protons and neutrons. And the reason that we're not seeing the high energies is because the neutrons, they act like a sail. They don't hold any charge. So when it's going through the kind of electromagnetic cavities that speed up the particles normally, that neutron almost, it's like an anchor. It weighs it down, Jimmy. It kind of drags, it slows it. But get this, here's a kind of number that you'll never wrap your head around. 600 billion. That's 600 billion, nearly 6 trillion of these nuclei firing around in both pipes, Jimmy, counter-rotating. And that's one heck of a lot of nuclei flying about anywhere, if you ask me, dude.
The nuclei is definitely flying.
Oh, it's flying, dude. It's sticking to the inside of the pipe, so it is. But yeah, I'm sure, Jimmy, there will be people that want to, find the fear factor and something new going on at CERN. And I would love to hype up. I love a good story and things. But in reality, I think this is quite mundane compared to some of the stuff that they probably do normally.
Well, I mean, in relation to the fear factor, let's just point this out. For example, if you didn't know anything at all about CERN, you didn't know anything at all. You never heard of CERN. CERN does not exist in your world. But CERN was there and running experiments, and then one day they did something and the whole world ended. Would the person who didn't know about CERN know what happened? It would just end in that second. And I think, knowing about more and more stuff like this, because we're aware of it, it's just like what you were saying about the cat in the box. When we notice, we're aware of this now, and now it's actually part of the reality because we're aware of it. As you become aware of these things, it's like the yellow Volkswagen syndrome. If you had a yellow Volkswagen, all of a sudden you'll start noticing all the other yellow Volkswagens on the road. But if you didn't have one, you wouldn't notice it. It's the same kind of thing with this. The more we find out, the more our world gets bigger, and the bigger our world is, the more we have to pay attention to, and the more we have to manage. So we're managing reality every time we look into what CERN's doing, and we get worried about it. But I don't think there's anything to fear about it. Honestly,
no, there's nothing different. That's what I really want to emphasize tonight. Now, you could say, well, hang on, though. They are having these collisions. They are probably making these little micro wormholes, micro portals. And we've said before, these things, they absolutely do not adhere to time on that quantum scale. So once you create these portals, it's there, right? So again, we could make a case that any time CERN's on, from that kind of occult, metaphysical kind of standpoint, we could be putting more holes in the veil. We could be making it more porous every time it goes on.
Yeah.
That's absolutely a potential, Scott.
Yeah, and you also have to take into account the X factor, as Kenneth Webb calls them, the unknown unknowns, right? The things that even the scientists at CERN don't even know about or don't even plan for, right? I mean, there's always that potential of some kind of X factor event occurring that they had no that they couldn't foresee, or that they had no knowledge about. So, I mean, that's always on the table too.
Absolutely. And they were talking very much about the fact that CERN is going to be closing down. It's going to be coming back in 2020, all souped up and ready to go. And they were basically saying, this is where you have to either swap out the magnets, things like that, to increase the power, which they're going to do. The LHC, the Alice detector, it's going to be at 14 tera electron volts. Now, currently it's at 30.
Yeah, those aren't your average refrigerator magnets that they're working with.
No. Venom things. And it's quite interesting because that's where you can draw the kind of parallel between that and the D wave, because they use the same neobium in the actual D wave as well. And that's why you can look at CERN as being a giant qubit. But the other way that you can increase power, and they are going to increase power, folks, this is inevitable. This is what they're going to do. The other way would be to build a bigger collider. Now, not very practical when you've got the world's biggest one already all set up and raring to go over at CERN. However, and it's been brought up before, I'm not breaking any news here, that's for sure. We've spoke about it here, I believe. China's plans to build a super collider. Now, obviously, that's come along with, headlines like this is set to rip the fabric of the universe, things like that. But that's what they say in the newspaper, like the Express. It's always got this kind of really pessimistic outlook on anything that's ever done. But this one over in China, guys, this is going to be, they say, a circumference of 34 miles. So it'll also be twice as long as the LHC. So that's, in my mind, it's going to be double the power. But you know how physics works? It's probably going to be exponential. It's probably going to be like 10 to the power of something more powerful. You just know it. Why they need things that powerful, I've got no idea. But it says now China plans to build a more powerful accelerator. And the name of it is the Circular Electron-Positron Collider. Now, that sounds to me like they're going to be colliding nucleus like they are right now in the special physics run. And I was saying a moment ago how it's just the protons and the neutrons have stripped the electron off. Well, if they're leaving that electron on there, that's where you start to produce absolutely huge, massive amounts of gamma rays, X-rays, and synchrotronic energies. Because earlier this year at CERN, and I'm not just making this up, I learned this from CERN, because they were saying how they were doing runs and they left the electron on. Now, when they speed this up round the ring, through the electromagnetic field, the cavities and things like that, because it's going in a circular motion, this electron, it gains energy and it rises. Now, when it falls back down, it produces these cosmic rays. And that's exactly what they are, folks. Cosmic rays. So we've got this thing that they're talking about in China, and it's got the electron-positron collider. Now, I've not looked at positrons. I can't really hypothesize as to what that means. But for me, and considering they called the experiment at CERN earlier in the year the Gamma Factory, basically the light factory, that this looks like it's going to be a huge, huge, huge particle accelerator that's going to have many, many different kind of pipes coming off it. And the reason the pipes will be coming off it is because of these synchrotronic energies that are produced, gamma rays, X-rays, you name it. Over at CERN right now, they've got something called the cloud experiment, where they take the energies that they produce currently and they simulate cosmic rays coming in from the universe and bombarding clouds. Now, that's led people like me and others to say, well, that's almost like simulating how geoengineering is going to work. What happens when they're hitting chemtrails, stuff like that. And we know they're probably looking into that, but what else have they got to look into where they can justify building something twice the size of CERN? It really does make you wonder what kind of hidden physics they're tapping into as well. Often kind of, I don't know why, but my mind often thinks Stargates. I don't know why. We'll be back after the break with Johnny with